You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionFit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means once again we are back. It is time to commence our broadcast week here on the Options Insider Radio Network. Did you miss us? We were only gone for a weekend. Hopefully you had a fun, enjoyable, these days safe weekend out there. I always have to throw that one in there these days, in these crazy times through which we are all living in these days. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting network upon which so many of you are binging. If you're listening in the on-demand, you're one of our legions, our many, many tens of thousands of on-demand listeners. All we ask, if you like what you hear, keep rating and reviewing wherever you get the show. Could be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Maybe you're an Audible listener. Maybe you're a YouTube person, wherever you get the show. Of course, if you get it via the app, we just ask you to rate and review it in the App Store. That helps new folks discover it that way. Of course, if you want to step up to the big leagues, and we did see a lot of you folks, smart folks, getting in under the wire there before the May 1st cutoff, because you want to qualify for this week's giveaway. I see what you're doing. I see what you're up to. Smart folks out there, welcome to all the legions of new folks who joined us right under the wire. We were even nice. A couple of you came in. I think you're international. It's like you missed the May 1st just by a couple of minutes or a couple of hours there. So tell you what, we'll be nice. We'll throw your chips into the hat as well. So you get to play for this month. That's how much we like you folks. So there you go. Welcome to all the new folks who are joining us. If you know what the heck I'm talking about, theoptionsinsider.com/secret club is the place to go. I guarantee you it's the coolest, indeed the only secret club in the world of options. You get access to all this fun stuff we do throughout the week live. You're getting, yes, I know, brace yourselves, another double pro Q&A week. We liked it so much last week. We're doing it again. I also do have to go to the Options Industry Conference the next week, so that does help with that as well. You're going to get some fun content from there as well. Don't worry. So, yeah, it should be kind of fun. So we're going to have a double dose. Tomorrow, Pro Q&A Day, we got the return of the legendary Uncle Mike. You guys loved it, so we're bringing him back. You can pick his brain on all things good and fun in the world of options. And then he liked it so much last time. He's been bugging me ever since. When can he get back in the hot seat? None other than the original market wizard himself, Mr. Tony Saliba, joining us for a very rare Wednesday Pro Q&A session. So you're getting your double, all you new folks signing up, you're getting quite the palooza of goodness coming at you. So make sure, if you haven't done so already, start sending in those questions. I guarantee you they're going to fill up with good questions. Of course, if you listen live, you want to ask your questions live, you get bumped to the top of the list. And of course, Options Oddities every Friday, all that good stuff. And of course, coming up in a little bit, the giveaway for the April Pro Trading Crate. Who will win it? Stay tuned. We shall find out. But first, we have to commence our duties and our broadcast week the way we are wont to do these days. We got to go back. We got to dial the time back a little bit to the halcyon days of the 80s when laces were big and everyone had a mullet. And wrestling was the king of entertainment media out there. We've done a lot of the top stars out there, even the secondary stars. I would put this guy more in the between third and second rung of 80s wrestlers out there. Definitely one, once I say the name, you go like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. He was pretty cool. And he did that with this and the other. I won't say exactly what he did. But I will say this. Having chosen the person, when they played the theme for me, I was like, it had no resonance to me whatsoever. I had to go back and check. I made sure this is actually the right, and it is. So you may remember the wrestler. If you get this theme, I will be suitably impressed. Can you name this week's 80s wrestler? It kind of goes on that way for a while. Definitely not a theme that is very evocative to me, but perhaps it will resonate to my two cohorts. First, let's go out to the quiet, the tranquil hinterlands of St. Charles, where when he's not talking to us and managing his clients' accounts, he's scouring the archives for 80s themes to prepare for the Monday episode. He is Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, A, welcome back to the program, and B, can you name that surprisingly jaunty 80s wrestlers theme song, sir?
Well, thank you for the welcome back. It's always exciting to be on the option block. In terms of who that wrestler could be, I really don't know. So I'm just going to go with this is a total guess based on, you say he's kind of not quite an A-card guy, but I'm going to go with the magnificent Don Morocco.
Wow, that's a deep cut indeed.
That is a really deep cut.
And I will say, no, it is not correct, sir. But you got a tip of the cap for quite the deep cut. And then also joining us, very tinny, maybe a little bit extra tin mixed in there this week, feeling a little bit under the weather, but still joining us. He is the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com, back from vacation. And of course, what happens when you come back from vacation or traveling anywhere these days? I'm looking forward to my trip to Texas now. You do get ill. He is Mr. Mark Sebastian. Mr. Meatball, sir, A, welcome back to the program. And B, can you name that jaunty 80s wrestling tune?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of ideas. And so that definitely had like a circusy feel for it. So my initial thought was Doink the Clown. And then I got to thinking, I'm like, who else could be that jovial? And I don't think we've done Coco Beware yet. So I want to throw out the Birdman, Coco Beware.
Both of those, given the jauntiness of that tune, both of those are actually excellent thematic guesses. And both of them are unfortunately incorrect because you will both be surprised by who this is. This is actually the music for George the Animal Steel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you remember him, right? He come in, he had the purple tongue, he had the little doll of mine. He would eat the turnbuckle and then throw you into it.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed George the Animal Steel.
Never in a million years. I had to check it about 5 times myself. Did you get the right music? I had to go look, and yeah, that is it. It's just doesn't scream George the Animal Steel at all to me. So there we go, listeners. George the Animal Steel, our surprisingly jaunty wrestler, as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right. Usually we have a winner, and I allow the winner listeners to pick what we're going to do next. But we have no winner, so we'll have to figure out what we do. By the way, welcome to the trading block, of course, a portion of the show. We break down what's lighting it up out there in ye old markets. And it has turned. It was mixed, listeners. Now it is decidedly red out there on the screen once again. So I guess, the tsunami of nukes that Russia has threatened Ukraine with weighing on the markets, understandably so. Before we get to all that fun, it is the beginning of the month, which means we have to pay off our secret club folks, as I mentioned, from last month. We have to determine the winner of our Options Insider Pro Trading Crate. All of our secret club members, all of our pro members are all entered into the hat every month to win the drawing. It is awesome stuff. It is everyone is different. They're all bespoke. I'm looking at the mountain of stuff here. You will have a chance to send in your shirt size so you can get some exclusive Options Insider gear. This is the kind of stuff that I wear when I go to the conference like next week. Pretty much every big CEOs of exchanges and brokerage, all the ones who've come through our studio and been on our shows, have all asked me for. A lot of them, I've sent a bunch of them. So it's floating around the industry a bit, but not many people have access to the stuff. You guys get them. We don't skimp on these. They're Land's End. They're good stuff. But hey, we like you folks out there. And then we put a bunch of other good stuff in there. You get an educational choice. You get a bunch of other bespoke items. Again, each one of these crates is cool and completely custom just for you. So we will reach out to our winner after the show, or maybe during the show, and hit them up for that info. But you know what? I'll just pick a person. I will pick who picked it last. I think Mr. Meatball, you picked it last time, correct? So I think we'll have Uncle Mike do it this time. So when I say go, I will set the numbers flashing. These are for all the numbers of all of our member numbers for our pro members. And then when you guys say stop, I will stop the random number generator, and it will correspond to a member number. That way I have no one has any control over it. It is all the whims of fortune. So Mr. Uncle Mike, are you ready, sir?
I am ready.
All right, I've hit the button. The numbers are flashing. It is now completely out of my hands. Uncle Mike, when you say stop, I will pause it, and then we will choose our winner. So whenever you're ready, sir, just tell me.
Stop.
Oh, look at you throwing a curveball to me. I got it, though. Luckily, good reaction time, listeners. All right, here we go. All right, we got the number. Let's see. Of course, I have to scroll down to see. Oh, there we go. Chris Lovell. Oh, welcome. Welcome, Chris Lovell. You've been around for a bit. I've seen your name. You've written in some good stuff. I think you've had questions for Uncle Mike before. I haven't seen you in the live in a little bit. Let's get you back in there. That'd be fun. But Chris Lovell, congratulations. You are our winner for the April Pro Trading Crate. Our producers will reach out to you for your shirt size and your educational item choice. And then beyond that, we shall put together something awesome. I'm looking at the mountain of items right here, right now, listeners. And to say it is a lot, it is an understatement. We've made a little bit of a dent in it. We have been doing this for a little bit now, but still, man, we have a lot of stuff to give to you folks. We must really like you folks. You know what doesn't like you folks, though? It's the markets out there today, listeners. They're looking decidedly red out there. Back below that 4,200 level that we've been talking about for a while now, listeners. That's a very important support. Bounced off it a few times earlier last week. Right now, we broke through it towards the end of the week. Seemed like maybe we could recover some of that today. Then not so much. Coming into showtime now, we're seeing all the major indices in the red, even the NASDAQ. S&P leading the dance today, off 0.7%, Dow off 0.6%, the NASDAQ closing in on 0.4%. That means all of our favorite vol friends looking frothy again. VIX cash, when we kicked off the show, at about a 35. My goodness, we're 10 handles beyond the logins entry point, listeners. That's saying a lot. That's up 6.25 points just from Thursday's show. It's a lot of juice, listeners. VVIX 126, that's up 10 points from Thursday's show. VXX, who knows what this beast is anymore, but it is moving in the general direction of all the other ball products. That at least is something. That's 28.5 right now, up 2.25 points. UVXY, when we kicked off the show, 19.25, up nearly 4 handles, about 3.75 points. I'm sure it might even be a little higher if we react it now. SVIX 10.25, that's down 1.5 points. Be interesting to see how low SVIX can go. It is a new addition to the space. Of course, that is the inverse VIX product. And understandably taking a bit of a drubbing right now. A UVIX 26.25, that's our levered friend. That's up 2.5 points. And VolQ, the at the money, straight at the money, no skew, no other nonsense in there. At the money vol, the NASDAQ, 37 even when we kicked off the show. It's up 5.25 points from this time last week. Let's go back around the horn. Mr. Uncle Mike, as our winner guesser for this week. You didn't guess the wrestler correctly, but you got to guess our pro trading crate winner. So that's kind of fun. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is lighting up your tape on this now not anymore Uncle Mike type of day?
Well, first off, I do want to give a little bit of a not so well known fact about George the Animal Steel. I remember on my days at Options Express, going out to dinner with the bosses at either a money show or some option trading conference of some sort. It actually turns out that George the Animal Steel is personal friends with Ned Bennett, one of the co-founders of Options Express.
Deep cut. And I heard George Animal Steel was actually a very smart, intelligent fellow, and not at all like the character he portrayed, sir.
Ned had really good things to say about him. And I think the fact that I impressed my boss when I knew that George the Animal Steel was from Detroit. So pro wrestling and options, it's a combination that who'd have thunk it, but it's definitely there, and it's I'm sure it's benefited in all walks of life.
Two great tastes that taste great together, some might say.
You could say that, yes. What's not a great taste is the fact that the market's going down right now for all us bulls out there. Today, it looked like we were going to hold the lows of the year, but we did break through the 4,100 level in the SPX. So right now, I think that the next key level of support is just more based on a key number, and that's 4,000. And then after that, I think that the next levels with which we need to look to are the levels with which we opened the year in 2021. So there's really not a lot of things to bounce off of at this point. We could still hold 4,100 on the day to day. We did go below it technically, but if we can close above it, we can close above where our lows were back in February. So that could be a bullish sign for the market. But typically on days when we had 155-point sell-offs, that the previous trading day, which was Friday, it usually doesn't end well a lot of times. So with that, I'm just going with my consistent mantra that I am long-term bullish. I do believe over the long term, we are going to have a bull market. But in the near term, I think it's very important to be very cautious of this market. I don't know if I would necessarily want to be doing any leveraged buying at this point in time. I have not had to roll down my put spread since early last week that I'm in my levered or aggressive trading account, but I'm getting pretty close, that's for sure. So still pretty far out of the money, but can't let those things go in the money. If they stay out of the money, you'll be okay. If you let them go in the money, a lot of times you won't be. So that's what I'm looking at right now from a technical level. The other thing of interest right now, we do have the Fed making the Fed is coming out this week and doing whatever they're going to do with interest rates. We have the 10-year note is selling off at this point in time. It'll be interesting to see, depending on what the Fed does, how this actually reacts. Where we're at right now is a lot of times if there's panic in the equity market, a lot of times you have a flight to safety in bonds. We're not getting that right now because there's so much fear of what the Fed's doing at this point. For a lot of people who have a 60-40 portfolio or something like that, this has not been a good year for them because of the fact that bonds have not been helping them when equities have been hurting them. And so what I think at some stage, money's going to appear somewhere between those two asset classes, because I have a hard time believing that there's just that much of a rush out of both bonds and equities to where everyone's buying real estate right now or everybody's buying commodities right now. Money's going to appear someplace. It just hasn't made its decision on where it's going to appear yet. And it's really not in a hurry to show it at this point. So just have an understanding as you're in these markets, folks. Know risk management is the key. Diversification is a wonderful thing, and I have nothing against it. I believe in it. I am for it. But if you're relying on fixed income to go up when stock prices go down, this is one of those instances where that's not working. And that's an important case to where you need to manage risk in other ways and perhaps have more diversification from the standpoint of having hedged equity as an asset class, or have some type of risk management by getting out of equities, whatever the case may be, or just hang on to this because, let's be honest, in 10 years, my opinion is that this market will be significantly higher and just weather the storm. But just have an understanding that assets having an inverse correlation, it is not a guarantee. And 2022 is a perfect picture of that. And that's what I'm seeing right now.
As we've said many times, a put option, the only contractually guaranteed 100% inverse correlation, listeners. Everything else is a crapshoot, as we are all learning yet again. When it hits the fan, correlation tends to go to 1. in a lot of these asset classes where you thought maybe otherwise you were diversified. So options, at the end of the day, sometimes the only game in town, certainly the only one you can rely on when it all hits the fan. Let's go out to the greasiest of meatballs. Mr. Meatball, I bought you as much silent time as I could, but now at last you must speak, sir. What is lighting up your tape down there in the Southern Volatility Mecca?
Yeah, you know, the mega caps, and we've been talking about when is this shoe going to drop, and the earnings for the mega caps last week was not very good. You know, we saw Facebook get a little bit of a rally, but Apple down, Amazon down, Microsoft kind of Google down. And it's really allowed the shorts to kind of start to take over this market. As Mike alluded to, we're now below 4,100. I don't know if we'll close there. But that's a really key level. And he's right. I'm looking at 4,000. And then from there, maybe 3,700. For all the blood that we've been hearing about, the S&P is still only down about 13% on the year. You got more pain in the NASDAQ than the S&P itself. But there's still plenty of room for this ship to drop. You know, the one thing that kind of stands out is that as bad as this day is, ARK funds is up 2%. So you've got your high beta is about the only place that's rallying today, along with energy. And to Mike's point, I think one of the things that people are going to start to see out of what the Fed did with all this monetary policy is they kind of flipped some of the traditional thoughts, some of the traditional approaches we have to portfolio diversification on its head, in that now, at least while rates are still low, the S&P and the bond market are correlating. And that is a very bad thing for traders that are for investors. Now, it's great for traders. I'm loving this market. But if I'm an investor, it's just not fun. And that has really caused some pain. You mentioned VIX. Yeah, we are in backwardation. And yeah, VVIX is at 127. The one thing that stands out to me, Mark, and you tell me if I'm wrong, does this seem like the laziest move to 35 that we've gotten in VIX in a very long time? We have yet to have, I think, a day where it really feels like people are scared. And that's why I think we still have some room to drop. And until we get a day where people are real scared, there's real blood in the streets, we could be in for more of this just kind of grinding lower, slowly taking out new lows, and the VIX being anemic. I really want to see, if you want to see a bottom, then you are actually rooting for VIX to make that big move and make that pump to over 40, and maybe even 45 or 50, because that's where we can do enough damage to people that the smart money starts stepping in and buying. But we're not there yet.
Yeah, I think quiet or, somewhat anemic pop and vol. I think that's a good way to put it. Because I was looking at some of the numbers. I thought you'd maybe see a little bit more out of VVIX and some of these other numbers as well right now. So yeah, I think I can put myself in that camp. Let's see what kind of numbers we are seeing right now. Let's go down the list here. Let's start in the land of VIX, what we were just talking about. And VIX is doing some numbers right now, as you would expect, on a day where red is the predominant color in the major indices. Those are the days that VIX tends to like, at least from a volume perspective. Speaking of volume, we are awaiting the official numbers from OCC. If past is prologue listeners, we'll get them right after the show is done. So we'll probably talk about them on Thursday's episode there to see how the month is stacking up. Speaking of volume, that's our question of the week. Right now, listeners, we asked you, hey, the Fed, Ukraine, inflation, all conspiring to keep options volume relatively high so far this year. The options market traded nearly 10 billion contracts last year. Can we possibly beat that total in 2022, or is that just too much volume? Very simple this time, just two choices. Yes, we're going to hit more than 10 billion contracts in 2022, or no, won't hit 10 billion in 2022. I see we forgot a 2 in one of those, so 10 billion and 202 in one of them. So yes or no, get in there. Just went live. So far, 100% of you are saying yes. We shall see if that is the case as the week progresses out here. Let's keep on rolling out to the numbers. Like we said, VIX, 352,000 contracts. That ADV has actually come in a little bit since the last time we chatted, which is kind of interesting given how much action we've seen out there in the last few sessions. It's down to 441. I think it was 450, 460 something earlier SPY, 4.85 million contracts right now. The ADV, almost 6.2 million. So SPY is definitely going to hit its ADV today. The S, 1.3 million. And the S is over a million by this time of the day. Something is afoot in the markets. The ADV, almost 1.8 million out there in the S right now. And small caps, 374,000 contracts, are pretty much almost exactly half of its ADV, which is closing in on 750. It's about 742 right now. So IWM also looking pretty frothy out there. Let's see if our single names are looking frothy. Let's get out to the most active names and options. And this is another one of those weird days, listeners, where we see this a lot when the indexes start getting hot and heavy and things start getting a little bit macro focused, shall we say. We were talking earlier about 4,200, but yeah, as we mentioned now, we're below 4,100 now, which is even more perhaps alarming for a lot of you bulls out there. When the eye tends to turn towards the macro, sometimes the single names get left behind in the dust. That is what we're seeing out there today. It only cost you 151,000 contracts to break into the top 10 most actives today. That's a quiet Tuesday in August. Listen, that's not usually a rock'em sock'em day when the markets are turning pretty hard red. And I guess you to Microsoft, the $1.51 on the tape. Number 9, Twitter. All the drama. We're probably going to see Twitter in our top 10 for a while. Today, it's good for number 9, 169,000. Number 8, it's Ford. Let's see what's going on with good old F today. I got a feeling it's down. It's only down 18 cents, but it is back in 13 handle, listeners. It got down as low today as 13.90. I know the previous low last week was 13.92, so it keeps getting down to that 13.90 level and then bouncing. We'll see if that can be the case again today, but yeah, not looking good out here. I know the Rivian stake was weighing on a lot of these names. Ford, good for $1.73 in terms of options contracts. Number 7, the Amazonians, man, they posted a rear miss for their numbers here for Q1. They were down 400 odd handles, which just sounds crazy to say, a single name. We're not talking an index, just a single stock down 400 plus handles in a day. They are continuing that down at 78.5 handles again today, or another 3.16%, down to 2,400. And yeah, they were 2,903 right before they announced their numbers last Thursday. So yeah, they're down a whopping almost exactly 500 handles. Actually, they are pretty much exactly 500 handles. My goodness. Quite the drubbing there in Amazon land. Still 2,405, so still a lot of meat on that bone, but my goodness. Good for 190,000 contracts. In Amazon today, number 6 is Uber. It's the name we haven't checked in on. Usually they pop in to our top 10s during earnings season. That appears to be the case right now. Pretty much exactly 250,000 contracts for Uber. It's off $1.65 or about 5.25%, trading a little bit shy of the 30 handle right now. Number 5, NVIDIA. It's got a lock on that kind of 5 to 4 spot, 271,000. Number 4, its other friend that also has a lock on that 5 to 4. They kind of rotate back and forth every day. Today, NVIDIA's number 5, 271, and AMD's number 4 at 291. And then we jump up a bit again to Facebook, number 3, good old 382,000. It seemed like for a second there, maybe Facebook was going to be the lone ray of sunshine in otherwise gloomy markets. That is the case right now, actually. It's up nearly 2% right now, or about 3.5 handles. So back north of the 200 handle, it was well below that. Got down to 175 and a little bit shy of that, 174.95. So yeah, it has rallied quite a bit from there. Pretty close to its recent highs. Got up to about 205 3/4. So trading about 203 3/4 right now. So yeah, getting a little bit of lift. One of the few names bucking the trend out there today. Facebook. Number 2, the old Tesla. Everybody wringing their hands saying, oh no, Musk is selling the Tesla stock to buy Twitter. What's going on? That's been weighing on the stock. The stock getting more dark side today, off nearly 1%, about 0.9%, a little about 8 handles. 8 handles in Tesla is a rounding error. Trading right around 863 or so right now. So still well shy of that 1,000 level everybody watches. And number 2, only 573,000 contracts. That's not a heck of a lot for Tesla at all. And then we got the fruit company holding down their usual number 1 spot. Pretty light for them today as well, only 868,000. Apple selling off about 2% out there. They were talking about some concerns about supply chain and logistics, but otherwise, everything they make that they can get out there in the supply chain, they're selling. So that part is working. It's just getting the stuff to people and some of the other logistics. Obviously, they produce a lot in China, and China having some issues, to put it mildly, out there right now with the coronavirus. So that's probably going to weigh on them. And some of that may be weighing on the stock because the stock was at 166 right after their announcement. And right now is trading 154.35. So taking a bit of a drubbing since then, as pretty much everything else has. And you know what, listeners, you like yourself some earnings. We've got a whole bunch of earnings move results, earnings season, and earnings trades reports for you guys and gals to sink your teeth into right now. We got a whole bunch of names popping off this week as well. We were talking about match group earlier in our odd block, and actually I think on our oddities. And we have some, announcements coming up for them on the 3rd after the bell. They were trading at 77 even pretty much when this report was run. They were pricing in $7.38. In the past, they've moved $6.31, so fully a buck and change worth of extra juice in match. Match, as we talked about in oddities, they kind of own online love now. They have all of it. They have, obviously, Match.com. They have Tinder. You name the dating site, they own it. So it's kind of the place to go for online love. And there's been interesting options activity out there of late. LYFT, also the 3rd after the bell. 32 1/4 is where it was trading. They're pricing in almost $3.60. In the past, they've moved $2.50. So little over $1 worth of extra juice out there in LYFT as well. Our other friend, AMD, a perennial top tenner, also on the 3rd. They were trading almost $85 as of this report. They were pricing in $8.37. My goodness. In the past, they've moved $4.19. So they're pretty much pricing in a doubling of vol this cycle. Wow, that's a lot of juice for AMD. That probably merits a little bit more analysis. That's an intriguing one. So mark that in your calendars there, listeners. Let's go out to Coffee Land. How much coffee ball is there right now? Starbucks, the 3rd after the bell as well. 74 3/4. They're pricing in 4 1/4. In the past, they've moved a little bit shy of $2.50. So they're pricing in a whole heck of a lot of extra juice as well. Obviously, input prices, inflation, a lot of that weighing on what's going on with Starbucks out there. Coffee prices kind of seen an interesting roller coaster of late, as pretty much everything else has. So that's an interesting one to watch. Clearly a lot more vol being priced in there. Moderna going out to the front lines of the coronavirus battle. They're on the 4th before the bell. 142.5 is where they were trading as of this report. They're pricing in $12.80. In the past, they moved $10.66. So more vol in Moderna. Hard to argue that isn't merited as well. eBay, haven't checked in on them in a while. 4th after the bell, $52 is where they were trading. They're pricing in 3 3/4. In the past, they've moved $2.50. So a whole $1.25 worth of extra juice out there in eBay. DoorDash, another one kind of the front lines of the food delivery of the pandemic. They're on the 5th after the bell. 82 1/4 is where they were trading. And look at this. They're pricing in $12.70. In the past, they've moved $8.14. My goodness. So you're talking 50% worth of extra juice out there. Wow. Again, that part of the business, that area is certainly very volatile right now. We don't know how it's looking. People are maybe planning on a little bit of reopening, maybe hitting that business, but maybe not so much now. So understandably why there might be a little bit more vol on that. Oh, our old friends, we were just talking about them. WWE popping off after the bell on the 5th. They're at $59.60. Man, almost around $60. They've had a nice run of late. They've managed to maintain it while a lot of other names have been getting shellacked. They were pricing in $4.35. In the past, they've moved $4.76. So a little bit less vol in WWE right now, which is kind of interesting. Wrestling vol, check it out for yourselves after the bell on the 5th. Meanwhile, it's time for us to keep rolling and unleash the Eye of Sauron. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. Let us commence the festivities here and unleash the beast. And we're actually going to fix its gaze first on a name it first highlighted exactly a week ago. We talked about this trade in Juniper Networks. It was the 33 puts going out last Friday, the 29th. They went up last Monday, so it was a purely weekly trade. Juniper Networks ticker symbol, JNPR. The stock was $34.20 when we profiled a 5,000 lot of the April 33 puts going up for 95 cents, pretty much right off the offer. There was 103 vol. That was kind of the tail end of a whole tsunami of paper, a total of over 10,000 contracts that went up that day, all on those puts, all for different prices. Looks like they bought the latter chunk for 95 cents. It was kind of one of those, we joke about them as market makers, like they buy something, how are they now kind of thing, but that's what went on here. They bought 1,000. They said, how are they now? They went up for 75 cents. So first they went up 2,214 for 69 cents. Then they paid 75 cents, and they bought some more, and they kept buying more. How are they now? How are they now? All the way up to the final 5,000 lot for a whopping 95 cents. So if we break down all the puts they bought around 10,000 for an average price of somewhere around 82, 83 cents, it seems like. So, yeah, they bought a lot of these puts. It seemed like they were pretty spooked about Juniper. We checked in on them on Thursday's show, and they seemed like they were trending in the right direction, but they weren't quite there yet. Remember, the stock was $34.20. And on Friday's close, they had one more day. The stock closed at 31.5. So remember, they bought the 33 puts. The highest price they paid, listeners, was 95 cents. So it's like we got a bit of a winner chicken dinner on our hands, listeners. They ended up paying, like I said, about an average. They bought some for 60 cents, some for 75. So they bought them all over the place. 95 cents. They average out somewhere around 82, 83 cents. So we'll use that for their average price for their 10,000. And the stock, they went out almost $1.50, right? $1.48 for these puts. So it seems pretty straightforward. Looks like they made around $650,000 on these puts at the end of the day. Mr. Meatball, these were surprising because these were a weekly trade, obviously. They paid a ton of vol for these things. They were out of the money puts still. They were $1.20 out of the money when they started trading these things. So it seemed like they were preparing for a pretty dicey end of the week for Juniper. And it wasn't quite getting there. I don't think even the earnings did it. And then this massive sell-off came in on Friday, and it kind of just dragged all boats down, including Juniper, and it seemed to save them, Mr. Meatballs. Is that your takeaway as well?
Yeah, this is not a bad market to be long out of the money puts in. I got to be honest. That's playing into your hands. That is what happened here. I think that this is someone who was hedging off Juniper earnings, and then when Juniper didn't just completely tank on earnings, it did get a nice little gap. They were able to ride them lower and all the way down on Juniper. So yeah, sometimes having a bearish outlook on a stock and then merged with a bearish outlook on the market as a whole can really play into your hands. And that's what happened here.
Yeah, it never hurts when you got some puts in your back pocket and the market melts down 2 to 3% on expiration day.
It does not.
It's usually a good thing. Yeah, because this guy, he was getting there, but he wasn't quite there. Juniper alone wasn't going to do it for him. He got a little bit of help from Putin and the Fed and Corona and everything else that drove us down on Friday's markets. More sellers than buyers at the end of the day. So yeah, this guy was chugging along. He was maybe going to get there. Then he got a nice little push over the finish line, courtesy of all these macro headwinds out there. So yeah, he's at least thankful. He probably has some stock, so maybe not super excited, but still, he was worried. He bought enough to buy all these puts, so that at least played out in his favor. Let's go on out now to, looks like, this might be a newcomer. If not, it's one we haven't talked about in quite some time. This is New Residential Investment Corp. The name sounds vaguely familiar. I think we talked about it, but it's been a while. Ticker symbol NRZ. Trading right now 10.25, off about 45 cents. So it's had an interesting year. A year ago, it was trading 10.73, so about half a buck north of where it is right now. And then it rallied up to its high for the year. It was initial high. It did get higher later. But initial high for the year, guess when it was, listeners? Yep, June 8th, you're right, 11.21. Then it immediately got its legs clipped out from under it, got down to 9.31 on July 19th. Then it rallied again, got back up to 11.64 on November 3rd. So it had a second leg, and it kind of bounced. This one's had a lot of fits and starts, down to 10.50, back up to 11.50 in December. Did that like 3 or 4 times. Rallied again to 11.25 on March 29th, and then sold off again to 10.25 on April 7th. This chart is just like a bunch of spikes over and over again. None of them can be sustained, but it does try. Gives it the old college try, back to where it is right now. Pretty much a lost year, off about half a buck on the year, down to 10.28. Started the year 10.73. So what do we find out here? Not surprisingly, maybe with all these failed fits and starts here on this chart, listeners, we found some put love to the tune of a lot of put love, actually, to the tune of the August 9 puts. So we're trading 10.25 right now, roughly. Someone came in this morning and scooped up 33,500 of the NRZ 9 puts. They paid a whopping 42 cents. Now, this market was pretty atrocious because NRZ doesn't put up a lot of numbers. So they were 25 at 45, and they paid 42 cents for all 33,500. That's about a 45 vol, if you're wondering. The stock was actually a dime higher at 10.38 when these went up. These are longer term, but clearly they put them on today because there are earnings tomorrow before they open. So this is pretty much your last chance to get in before the announcement tomorrow, before the bell. So clearly they have some concern about tomorrow's number, but they didn't just buy a weekly or a monthly kind. They went all the way out to August. So clearly they have a little bit longer time horizon that they are concerned about here with NRZ. So yeah, 42 cents for the 9 puts. So you're looking at stock around 860, listeners. That's below the 52-week low right now, which is right around $9. So someone looking for some longer-term concerns here, Mr. Meatball, in NRZ and putting some size money where their mouth is to the tune of 33,500 of these 9 puts, sir. What say you?
Yeah, this thing pays a nice dividend. So this could be kind of a puts in stock play where someone's just long a boatload of it. It doesn't do a lot. It's not been a very volatile stock. I know it's very, it does see a lot of interest from the dividend capture people. So this definitely could be that type of move. That said, it has been on a slow move lower, and it's not like interest rates going up. It is particularly great for residential real estate. So maybe we're in for some pain here.
That does seem to be the case. Again, could be charitable, could be someone looking to harvest a bit of the old divvy and putting on the puts in case the worst does come to pass with some stock. I don't see a stock leg with this, so they could obviously have an existing stock leg. That usually with this kind of size puts, that usually tends to be the case. And they want to keep their divvy, but also worried about some downside. In this case, they're going to wear it all the way down to around $8.50. So that's a fair amount of downside. But they are hanging out, looks like, at least on the stock side. And so, and speaking of hanging out, you guys are hanging out in the chat. So we have some other ones we were going to talk about. But, if you guys make requests in the live chat, we always see if we can work you in. This time we've got good old Unlimited coming in here. He wants to know, did the Eye of Sauron pick up the TDOC May 13th weekly 25 puts? And no, we didn't. So we sent the Eye of Sauron back out to search for those. See what you were talking about, Mr. Unlimited there. By the way, listeners, if you're wondering, TDOC, $35.10, up $1.37 today. So bucking the trend, up 4% today. It's always hard to be one of the few names that's rallying on a broad sell-off, right? Because that rally is obviously going to get muted, going to get dragged down a little bit. How high could you have gone without the massive headwinds of the macro market out there? Let's see, TDOC really quickly. We talked about them before, obviously the virtual telemedicine company, well below where they used to be trading. $1.63 is where they were trading on May 3rd of last year. Trading right now, listeners, $35.08. They've sold off again on April. Looks like their last earnings were pretty atrocious. They were trading $56 on April 27th, April 28th, 33.5. So they've gotten clipped again just in the last week here. My good, this name just cannot catch a bid to save its life. 52-week high, 178.68. 52-week low, 28.75. That came last Thursday. My goodness. What a beating. Looks like someone, as Mr. Unlimited has pointed out, looks like someone maybe thinks this beating is overdone. But you know what? They're not getting too risky with it. They came out and sold 6,411 of the 25 puts expiring on the 13th in the weeklies there. It did them right off the bid for 16 cents. Again, the stock was pretty much right here when these went up. There are no earnings. Earnings obviously were last week. So the next announcement is in July, it looks like. So this is not an earnings play. This is just straight up harvesting a little bit of the old risk premium. Not getting too risky either. These are still $10 out of the money. So they said if they have to buy the stock $3.75 below the 52-week low, they will very generously do so. And they're putting 6,411 contracts to work on that level. Again, these didn't light up our tape, but our listeners are intrigued by these. Mr. Meatball, not the most aggressive of lines in the sand here, but someone saying if they continue to annihilate this already annihilated name, another $10, then and only then will he step in to buy some, sir.
It's a yield play. I don't particularly love it. I don't think there's enough yield there to execute it. 16 cents doesn't seem worth it to me, but hey, if you like that, why not just sell the 20 puts at 4 cents, 18,000 times? Go crazy, right? We see this a lot, picking up pennies in front of a steamroller. But you're right, maybe they're willing to take delivery at 25 next week. Who knows?
Yeah, hard to believe May. We're already in May. It just seems crazy to me. Listen, this year seems in some ways to be dragging, other ways seem to be rocketing forward. So there you go, Mr. Unlimited. Everybody else in the chat who was curious. They're picking up about $100,000 to do this. So it's not nothing. But yeah, it's not a ton of juice. Not super exciting. It's not the most aggressive of strikes. But hey, maybe you like these. Maybe it sounds like you're into TDOCs. If you are, again, these aren't the worst, but you want to get 16 cents a few times and pick up the stock maybe $10 lower, maybe that's where you want to play. Meanwhile, Uncle Mike is itching to play as well because it is time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody. It's that time that I know Uncle Mike has been waiting for, and I know quite a few of you have been as well. It is time to unleash the Unklest of Mike's, a.k.a. the biggest Georgie Animal Steel fan that ever lived, for 10 minutes of sheer Georgie Animal Steel analysis of his career, and then maybe 30 seconds of options education. What you got for us?
Well, George was from Detroit. George actually used to come out to the ring. We heard the theme song earlier. I didn't even know what his theme song was. He used to like to eat turnbuckles. He had a green tongue, and he really wasn't a man of many words. He just kind of did a bunch of weird stuff, but very entertaining, and from what I understand, a very nice human being.
Wasn't George the Animal Steel like a college professor or something?
I had heard that he was a professor or something, or like a very advanced degree. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard he was like a genius as well.
I've heard that also. He was a very nice man, and according to Ned Bennett, who happened to be friends with George the Animal Steel, nothing but great things about good old George. So moving onward from George the Animal Steel, what I want to talk about today is a rather timely topic, and that is determining what your level of leverage is when trading. Now, I think that's something that's very important. Typically, the people that through the years that I've been in this business, and I estimate that I've talked to over 10,000 people since I've been in this business. And I'm not talking about like in mass groups or anything. I mean, I've had literally over 10,000 one-on-one conversations between phone calls, in-person meetings, and things like that. And the people that run into trouble are the people that don't manage their leverage levels very well. Now, there's also risk management also, but in terms of getting out of the trade before it goes too far against you. But what I want to talk about today is determining the right level of leverage. There was a time I remember when I knew a guy and I kind of talked him down off the ledge. It was a $1.2 million net worth, and he had actually lost $400,000 one day. And he was selling out of the money call spreads with everything that he owned. And he was doing it because his thought was, well, the market doesn't go up that quickly. And if it does, I can manage my risk pretty well. And he had had a lot of success with it for many years, actually, even in bull markets. However, one day the market went up a little bit faster than what he should have, and 1.2 million became about 790,000 really quickly. And so, needless to say, I talked with the guy for several hours that day. But the lesson, and this is kind of an extreme example, is that even though you have your risk management in place, even though you have your stop losses, your hedges, this, that, or the other, what is the real worst case scenario as to what can happen? And can you handle it without it messing up your way of life? And for this guy, he owned a business and he was fairly young, so it didn't affect him too badly, but still, that's a lot of money to be losing in one day. And so what I would recommend is that when you're coming up with your trading plan, when you're coming up with okay, this is how much I stand to lose, should I be wrong? But what is the absolute worst case scenario? What's going to happen if all your stops get blown through, if you have a gap up or gap down? How does that affect you? And if you can bounce back from that and you can live to trade another day, okay, great. Then you're in a good spot. But if you don't factor in a worst case scenario, then you are asking for trouble in that something is going to happen to you that's going to hurt you and make you feel the pain of the guy that I just told the story about. And so how can you determine your level of leverage? Well, you're going to have different sections of your portfolio. You're going to have sections of your portfolio to where you have buy and hold stocks and or index funds or whatever. And I recommend that. I own that myself. And I think that's an important part of the overall portfolio. If that's the case, if the market does go lower, then you do have time on your side because there is no time decay in stocks itself. However, you also have your sets of your portfolio to where I think you need to have some type of an income base, such as your covered calls, as well as hedged equities, such as protective puts, and then, of course, fixed income. What are you going to do when that goes further down or against you than you think it should? What is your plan for it? And that is how you can determine your level of leverage. If you're doing aggressive trading, like probably most people on listening to this show are, what are you going to do if you have a 40% downturn one day? Can your overall net worth sustain such a thing? Or do you have your risk management in place with a hedge, not a stop, but a hedge to where you can withstand that? So what I want to emphasize is that you need to determine the proper level of leverage before you're doing anything in trading or investing. And by doing that, you won't become one of the people that blew out their account or has the scary stories that I've heard through the years. You'll be one of the success stories of the people who have been in this for a long time and who manage their risk and their leverage in a proper way. And that is the strategy block for today. For more information on it, tune into my YouTube channel. I should be caught up on all of these within the next week.
All right. And we're almost caught up with the show because it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's go around the block. I mentioned earlier our question of the week right now. Basically, do you guys think we could beat the 10 billion or nearly 10 billion worth of contracts we put up last year and the record year that was 2021? And so far, we're still hanging out. 100% of you say yes. We're going to be more than 10 billion contracts in 2022. Again, it just went live right before showtime. We'll check in on it throughout the week, see how it's doing. At Options is the place to go. If you don't see it, if it's not pinned there or something, just scroll down a little bit. We do put out a lot of content throughout the day. It's a good reason to come check in at Options throughout your trading day. A lot of good stuff there. Most actives, midday, most actives, end of day, all kinds of good stuff. Links to all of our shows. Good stuff and a whole bunch more. Last week's question, we asked you, hey, we're back in the red in the S and SPY. How are you positioning in your broad market portfolio right now? And we gave you 4 choices. You're still long SPY or the S. You're kind of just holding on. Or you're long SPY, but with the put or some other hedge. Or you're in cash, waiting to do a little BTFDing. Or you're into or about to move to crypto. And in cash, waiting to BTFD was our winner chicken dinner. Ever so slightly, 35.8%. Only 3% above our number 2, which is you're still long the S. You're just kind of riding the elevator down. Hopefully, you got some plan in place for what you're going to do. We kept saying for a couple of years now, this elevator can't go up forever. So have some sort of plan in place, hopefully, for when this thing, maybe as it is perhaps doing right now, turning to the dark side. 25.4% if you have a plan. Say you're long SPY, but you have a put or some other hedge in place. And only 6% of you said you're in or moving to crypto. It's not a lot of love for you crypto folks out there. But let's keep going. Let's go around the horn. Let's go out to the greasiest of Meatball. Mr. Meatball, sir, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of this week until we can gather here together on this program on Thursday?
You got the Fed. We got more earnings, and that is going to be what drives this market. I think everybody is waiting for this Fed to see what they're going to do and whether they drop the ball. So far, we're not getting any Fed drift. Maybe we do tomorrow, but and I want to see, are we going to break 4,000 this week? Because if we do, that could be what causes maybe the real people to start really get concerned.
Yeah, 4,000. That would certainly be an interesting level, to put it mildly, out there. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. What are you watching? I hear there's something called the FID. I think it is this week, so maybe that. I don't know. And are you also concerned about this 4,000 level, sir?
Definitely watching the 4,000 level, and below that, I think the next levels with which you need to take a look at are the close of 2020, because that's the next level down, I believe. That level, in looking at that, is 37.56. So I think that's the next key number, if you will, would be where we actually started 2021. And then below that, I think the next level down is where we started 2020, and that number would be 3230. So there's we could go down. I mean, based on these levels and how we went straight up, there's a lot of room below where some of these numbers are. So make sure you have a plan, folks.
Yeah, I've said it before. We started 2020 at that level, but people forget we actually dipped down to around 3,300 on election night at the end of 2020 when all that madness of going back and forth, who won, we don't know, no winner declared. The markets sold off initially down to around 3,300 in that after-hour session. So we were there maybe a lot closer, a lot sooner in history than perhaps you might think. So that's why we say everyone thinks, oh, we're down now. Maybe that's this time to be. Maybe that is the time to be TFD, but just saying, there can be a lot more blood on the screen before this thing starts to let up. So just be prepared for that. Listeners, around the horn we go one final time. Mr. Meatball, you are now allowed to go rest your voice, sir. But before you go, if folks want to hit you up, talk about maybe delta neutral trading, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, go to optionpit.com. We're writing awesome content every day. Macro content in Power Income, VIX content in my VIX Edge blog, macro stuff in Pit Report. We give you just amazing written content every day. Make sure you're there checking it out.
There you go. Optionpit.com is the place to go. And Mr. Uncle Mike, if they want to check you out on your various social medias or the old tubes, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, a couple areas. You can check out my videos on YouTube. I'll try putting out about one a week. Just type in St. Charles Wealth Management. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. Or if you want to contact me directly, feel free to check out my website on that, stcharleswealth.com.
There you go. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. We got to get on out of here, but don't worry, we'll be back talking about crypto earlier to dive into that, the much maligned realm of crypto with our friends from Crosstower. A lot of C's in that sentence. Coming up on the Crypto Rundown, more C's in a little less than an hour right now, listeners. Don't worry, all you live chat folks, hang out in there. We'll pump some fun stuff in there for you guys to be entertained. Back again live very shortly with the Crypto Rundown. Then back again tomorrow, like we said, double Pro Week coming at you this week. We got Uncle Mike back in the house, back in the hot seat tomorrow for a Pro Q&A session. Also getting a rare Education Tuesday. You're getting a double dose. All of our Secret Club friends getting live in your ear holes 2 episodes of Options Boot Camp. Yes, I said 2. Don't have to wait a week like everybody else does. You get them live in your ear holes tomorrow. You also get your dose of Uncle Mike. Then we're back on Wednesday. You're going to get a double OPR on Wednesday. How much do we love you folks, including another huddle. Brian and myself will huddle up again. And you get none other than Mr. Tony Saliba stepping into the hot seat yet again. You can't keep him out of that thing. He loves it. And then, of course, back on Thursday, another episode of The Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.